Thank you everyone for joining in. Welcome to the Postman Admin 101 webinar. This Postman Admin 101 webinar will cover topics helpful to those who are new to the admin role, as well as to those who are already managing a Postman team, but might benefit from a refresher course. My name is Harsha, and I'm a Customer Success Manager at Postman. I'll be presenting today along with my colleague Joshua, who is based out of California, USA, who is a Customer Success Engineer on my team. We work together on the onboarding specialization team at Postman. And I forgot to mention, I'm based out of Bangalore, India. And as we get started, I just want to make sure we quickly cover off a few housekeeping questions. If any one of you have any questions, we are going to be having a Q&A at the end. So please feel free to post your questions using the Q&A section on your Zoom toolbar. And if someone is wondering, yes, you are on mute. So please use the Q&A section on Zoom. The session will probably last somewhere between 45 minutes to about an hour. The session is being recorded and will be shared with everyone who is here later through email. And we'll also make sure this is available on our YouTube channel. And let's get started. Sorry for that. As we head into the agenda for the day, I want to make sure that everyone knows what Postman is, if someone is unfamiliar or new here or just getting started. Postman provides a collaboration framework which allows your team to develop a scalable solution and a scalable approach to work with your APIs. Postman is used by more than 11 million people. For many teams, Postman is a tool that helps them work with APIs more efficiently. And let's look at what we have on the agenda for today. As many of you know, team administrator in Postman is a key role in the Postman ecosystem. The team relies on the admin to have the know-hows to configure team settings, manage membership, and organize the team's APIs. Here's what we are going to cover. Postman, we are going to look at who are Postman admins, what are their goals, how to manage your Postman team, managing content for your Postman team, which is APIs. We are going to be discussing roles and permissions and billing and upgrades. We'll end the session by showcasing some useful resources, followed up by a Q&A session. And on that note, let's head over to our first topic, Postman admins and their goals. Here we are going to look at who are Postman admins and what's the role of a Postman admin. Like I mentioned, Postman admins are people who enable their teams and organization to work better with APIs across the lifecycle using Postman. And I'm sure many of you will agree with me, managing API lifecycle workflows within teams has its unique set of challenges. Teams need to maintain multiple versions of an API, assign and control ownership and permissions, and enable smooth collaboration. And admin's role here is to define and structure this whole setup. We'll talk more about how an admin achieves this in just a moment. On that note, let me quickly switch over to my Postman application so I can actually show you some of the places where this work is actually done. I hope all of you can see my Postman application. I'm on a Mac Postman application, and I'm on the latest version of Postman, which is 7.29. If anyone is wondering, Postman is also available on Linux and Windows systems. We, in fact, recently launched Postman on web, which is on beta right now. While we'll dig into some of the artifacts that you see here, like workspaces, APIs, collections, and so on, further along the presentation, right now, let's head over to the team option on the top right corner of the app, where we look at how we can start managing the Postman team. So upon clicking on the Manage Team button here, we'll be redirected to the Postman web dashboard, which is this, where we are on the Manage Team page right now. And people can get to this page directly from the web browser itself, not necessarily from the application. So as you can see, this is one of the primary pages where admins need to keep an eye out. As you see, this page gives me a summary of my team, along with some other useful options where I can navigate to certain specific sections within my product and configure settings. For now, I'd like you to take a look at the team members section right here, which mentions the number of users who are already in my team and the number of slots which I have purchased for my team. Currently, this is 3 out of 10. And you see a list of people in my team right here. And below that, you also notice support users, whereas teams can add support accounts for 2 members of the team to perform admin and billing tasks specifically. One thing to note here is people added as support users can't actually collaborate on APIs with the rest of the team. Support only accounts allow you to manage your team economically and maximize the number of users. We typically see people from IT teams or software management teams within organizations who are added up as support user accounts. Their primary job function might be to set up SSO if applicable, or manage licensing and billing, for example. The admin is also responsible for setting up the team right from after purchase, which includes functions like changing team details, setting up SSO if applicable, inviting team members, updating roles of team members, and managing licenses. And on that note, we'll head into our next section where we look at how can we start managing the Postman team. Like I mentioned, here we look at topics that will help us understand how can we start setting up your Postman team, inviting members, setting up authentication, which is SSO. We'll also look at reporting and resource usage pages, and we'll end it by looking at audit logs. I'm switching back to my manage team page on my Postman web dashboard right now. So the first thing I'd like to do is head over to the team settings option right here. This is a page which will allow us access to configure certain settings that we just spoke about, starting with some of the general settings. And let's head straight into it. As you can see here, the first option we have is team URL, which is basically a URL that is a unique identifier for logins. And this also can be used to access your web dashboard. So if you notice, my team URL is Wayne-enterprises.postman. You'll notice the same on my address bar as well. The next one is giving my team a name, which is Wayne Enterprises. And then we have options to update a team logo and a favicon for the team. Both these options are super useful for making sure you have your brands and companies look and feel right. And also, one important thing to note is if you're using Postman to publish any of your API documentation or showcase some of the work that your team has been doing on Postman, either through the API network or through Postman templates, it's highly recommended that you have your company logo and favicon updated. And with favicon, if your API documentation is hosted on Postman, this will show up in your address bar. And the next option we have here is making your team's profile public. And doing so will help your team have a public profile. As you can see, it generates a unique URL as well, which is basically your team's name, which is explore.postman.com/Wayne Enterprises in this case. Like I mentioned, if your team has public APIs, Postman API Network is one place to showcase them for the broader developer community to access them. And like I mentioned, I'm certain all companies want to make sure they get their brands look and feel right, and this is a place to configure that. We also have a section here to put out some about you. So this is a place to write a snippet of your team's information. And I'm going to click Save Changes, which is going to let me know that these have been updated. And the next feature, and the last in the general settings page, we have is Team Discovery, which is one of my favorite features in this section. Promoting collaboration across teams in an organization is one of the major goals of a Postman admin. Enabling team discovery eases the onboarding process by allowing users accessing Postman with their company email address to request to join pre-existing teams within their organization. And by this, I mean, as you can see here, once this toggle is turned on, you'll notice that Postman users from @postman.com domain can see your team and can now request to join it. And useful option for admins here is to have the ability to add a question that one would have to answer while requesting to join a team. So as you notice, right now I put in a question that says, what team are you a part of and what API workflows you have within Postman? So this might help me take a decision as an admin to see if I want to allow this user into my Postman team for more collaboration. So that's about the general settings. Let's head over to the next one, which is custom domains. Custom domains allow us to serve published API documentation on Postman. So if you're using Postman to host your API documentation, you would want to probably use a custom domain while publishing your documentation, and adding this is very straightforward. Let's say I'm adding a very simple domain name called api.something.com. Upon clicking on proceed, we'll be redirected to the verification flow. And once we have these configs set up, we'll be good to go and actually use this domain in while publishing our APIs. The next section we have here is billing details. Billing details. So the team settings page also enables one to update, change the billing information that's used on official records, like invoices, for example. So if you want to change your email address, the company name, or the company address, this is the place to get that updated. So let's look at the next section, which is authentication. And when I mean authentication, I'm talking about configuring SSO for your Postman team instance. Single sign-on services make it easy to manage your team's identity, adding a layer of governance. And I'm sure many of you would already have SSO config set up for many of the SaaS products that you're using on a daily basis. Another important advantage of enabling SSO is that it reduces phishing, thereby keeping important and sensitive information secure. There's just one prerequisite for setting up SSO with Postman, which is your team's identity provider must support SAML 2.0 standard. Another thing to note is only the admin can configure the single sign-on for a Postman team. The toggle option that you see here allows the admin to turn on or off the SSO authentication. This is a team level setting, and enabling or disabling this will apply for the entire team. Now let's look at how can we add a new authentication method. Upon clicking on this option, add a new method, we are redirected to a screen which will help us choose from the SSO provider we already work with in our companies. As you can see, we have integration set up with almost all the players out there, which are used for SSO, like Okta, Dio, Ping Identity, ADFS, and so on. Let's say I'm creating one for ADFS. Give it a name and click on proceed. And now we are directed to the configuration screen, where we need to provide some inputs from our identity provider and feed them in here. And once we set this up, we are good to go, and we can start using the authentication method for allowing users within our teams to sign into Postman using this. One thing I would like you all to notice here is Postman SSO supports just-in-time provisioning. I want you all to notice this checkbox right here. If you check this box, and if a user goes to log into Postman to create a Postman account, and if they don't have an account, Postman will create one for them automatically. So if you want to automatically add new users, highly recommend using this feature right here. For now, I'm going to configure this later and come back to my manage team page. I'm sure you're noticing that we have roles and permissions up next, and then manage invite links. While we have a whole section to cover roles and permissions at a broader Postman team level, so I'll not dive into this right away. And we'll come back to manage invite links in just a second after we actually send out a few invites. And for sending out a few invites, I'm heading back to my manage team page using this option right here. And here you have an option to invite users. Invitations are sent to individual users. You opt to add to your Postman team. So let's say in this case, I just want to add a colleague of mine. All I need to do is give it a name. And then I also have options to choose certain roles here. If I need to give him admin role or billing role and so on. And we'll get into details of what these roles are in the later part of the presentation. But for now, I'm just choosing all these roles for Amir and sending out invitations. And once an invitation has been sent out, you'll notice that it appears back on your manage team page screen, where you can choose to resend an invite or find out more details if the user has accepted the invite. The next option I want to show you while inviting users is sending out invites via link. So if you are sending out invitations to more than a couple of people, I would recommend you to check out this feature, which will allow you to generate a link and directly copy paste this link and send it across to the user who you want to get added to this team. So this is a super useful and easy to access feature for sending out invitations. And now that we generated the link, I want to head back to the team settings page where we've seen the manage invite links option. So as you can see here, this page gives us information about the link generated along with timestamps. One thing I'd like you all to keep note on is the expiry date. Every link comes with an expiry date, so you might want to keep tabs on this. And that's about it in terms of configuration your team settings. The next thing I'd like you all to notice is coming to reports and analyzing some of the resource usages of Postman team. And for that, I would like you all to notice the analyze right here on the top section of my Postman web dashboard, and which will redirect me to the reporting space. And you'll notice that we have two sections within the reporting. One gives one at the team level and one at the API level. While the team level, the overview report provides organizational level metrics, including new and active APIs, team sizes, and workspace information. So you could also filter this out by the number of DS. And when we move over to API level reporting, one thing to notice is that API reports provide a graphical representation of data and enable you to filter the data by collection and duration. You can view reports for any individual collections you have linked to an API from this dropdown right here. And here we have sections where you can track team API requests, average response times, and fail test runs and response codes. So this is what we'll find under the Analyze tab. One thing to note here is reporting is a feature that's available for Postman Enterprise Plan. The next thing that we are going to talk about is the resource usage page, which is also a kind of report for admins to keep track of, which can be accessed through the top right corner team link and the resource usage page right here. This page lists out the feature-wise usage against the limits for the current plan that you're subscribed to, with useful information into the value that your team is getting out of Postman. As you can see, we list out almost all the features that a team can use, starting things like mock usage, monitoring usage, public documentation views, custom domains, authentication methods, and integrations. This section is also a great way for admins to keep track of how the team is using and also make decisions. So it would enable the admin to determine if a team needs to upgrade for higher resource limits, for example. And That concludes our reporting section. Let's head over to the next topic that we have, which is audit logs. The admin has access to audit logs and can review important team events. Admin can look for when users were added, when an invite was sent, which user performed a specific action, when the team size were upgraded, and so on. This information can give insights into the team while improving security. And these are pretty much the topics I wanted to cover for managing your Postman team, which will help you as you're getting started with Postman, or if you're trying to change ways to manage your existing Postman team. On that note, let me head back to the presentation. We'll now talk about managing content for your Postman team. And what I mean by content, I'd like to say that there are 4 main elements to think about when using Postman to define your APIs that can help you become more effective in managing all your team's APIs across different stages of development. As you notice on my screen, workspaces in Postman are structured in a way to help you organize all the elements and artifacts to support your API workflows. Workspaces are key to collaboration and are a great way of this. There are 3 main elements to note within a workspace: APIs, collections, and environments. While APIs allow you to define and structure your schema, collections are there to group requests together that will allow you to document, test, mark, monitor, or publish your APIs. Environments help in defining variables to secure information and also to segment APIs based on stages. Let's head over straight into the Postman application to see some of these elements to create a workspace. So I'm back to my Postman application. As you notice, the top center dropdown button right here is a tab which allows us to create or manage workspaces. And you'll notice on my left pane sections where we have APIs and collections, and environments right here on the right side top. Right now I have no environments in this workspace, so it shows the same. For now, what I want to do is head over to the workspace management tab, and I'm sure you notice here 2 sections, personal and team. Anything that is created under the personal workspace is limited to the user who's logged in and is visible to only his eyes. So if you're working on any personal projects, APIs that are not meant for collaboration, this is where you'd want to store them. So everything that you're seeing on my screen right now is in my personal workspace. But upon coming over to the team tab, helps us to actually collaborate with the team. As you notice, there are 2 sections in team workspaces. I have workspaces where I can join in, and I have a view of workspaces where I already belong to, like quality team or developer relations, for example. So I can join these. So I already belong to these workspaces, and I can join this workspace by default. So I've created a workspace named Customer Success, and then given it a summary saying CS space. And I have a toggle here to choose between personal and team. So the next one that I'm going to do is start inviting my colleagues who are already on my team. I have Joshua, who is already on my team here. So I click on add, which will add him to this specific workspace. I also have a few permissions to choose for Josh when I'm adding him. As you notice, we have an admin and collaborator option. For now, I'm choosing admin, which will give Josh complete access for this workspace. And we'll talk more about what these permissions mean in just a few moments in our next section. One thing I'd like you all to notice is we have an option to limit the workspace visibility. So clicking on this option will make the workspace private, making it only an opt-in workspace. So if you're working on any secret projects or APIs that you want only certain teams to have access to, this is an option to choose. And one thing to note here is private workspaces are a feature that are available on Postman Business and Enterprise plans only. Right now, I'm not choosing this option, but I have another feature here to look at where by default, everyone in the team can join workspace. However, we can choose to let them get added as an admin or a collaborator. I'm going to choose collaborator for now and creating a workspace. As you notice, my workspace is created, customer success, and I can view it in my workspaces tab as well. Since it's a fresh workspace, I have APIs, collections, everything is empty. And now we'll take a moment to talk about how we can organize some of these elements within a workspace. And let me head back to the presentation. Okay. Now that we have a workspace created, the next thing that we need to look at is how can we organize workspaces and other artifacts that are in them, which are APIs, collections, and environments. One place to begin when thinking about how you organize your collections, environments, or workspaces is by following a domain-driven design approach, which would, and also the next thing would be when naming or organizing content can be looked at by the lines of business. This might be a great way to track how companies' products and services have evolved over time. Following a team-centered approach and focusing on collaboration should be considered when working with all these elements in your workspaces. And ultimately, it boils down to how well you've thought through the workflow of your whole API lifecycle. When it comes to naming and organizing your collections, environments, and workspaces are very much dictated by the whole workflow of your API lifecycle, starting from defining, designing, developing, documenting, testing, and monitoring your APIs. There are a handful of ways in which the maturity of your workflow will dictate the structure of your development platform. While not very exhaustive, these are a few things to consider while setting up, while structuring your workspace setup. There are a few important factors to consider along with these while managing APIs, which are versioning, stages, and governance. When it comes to versioning, how well you version your APIs, schemas, and other artifacts will impact things like the size of your collection and size of your collection, APIs, and so on. And when it comes to stages, creating logical stages for development, QA, staging, and production will impact how your collections, environments, and workspaces come together. And when it comes to governance, the maturity of your API lifecycle and how you measure, monitor, and report on your APIs will drive much of this conversation. And alongside all of this, Postman roles and permissions give the ability to manage teams with ease. On that note, I'll turn the floor over to Josh, who will explain role-based access control, billing and support resources available on the Postman platform. Josh, it's all yours.
Thanks, Harsha. Just share my screen here. Okay. All right. So I'd like to talk about roles and permissions. Once you've added your teammates and there's content in your team workspaces, you may need to configure access to it. Postman uses role-based access control to limit access to team resources such as team settings and billing information. You can assign 3 roles to team members. Admin can manage team members, team settings. Billing can manage team plans and payments. And developer, which can access team resources and workspaces. An admin can modify the roles of other team members in the web portal by clicking on Team, and clicking on Manage. Next, you want to click on the Manage Roles button, and Then you can click on admin, billing, or developer next to the corresponding member to assign and unassign roles. Then click Save. All right, every team member must have at least one role. Also, this is important, only team members with the billing role can assign the billing role to other users. If you're on a business or enterprise plan, each workspace, API, collection, and environment has its own role-based access control. You can assign 2 role types in Postman workspaces. Admin can manage workspace details and members, and collaborator, which can work on team resources in a workspace. A workspace admin can modify roles of other team members in the Postman app by finding the workspace, then clicking the ellipsis on the right and choosing Edit Workspace. You click on Admin or Collaborator next to the corresponding member to assign and unassign roles, and then save your changes. You can set the default role for everyone in the team who joins this workspace. Roles are set similarly in collections, APIs, and environments. You just click the ellipsis next to the collection API or environment, and then select Manage Roles. So I know some of you have admin roles as well as billing role. So let's talk about billings and upgrades. Let's take a look at the billing dashboard as well as how to upgrade your team plan and add more user licenses. So users with the billing role can access the billing dashboard by clicking on Team in the upper right and select Billing. From there, you can see your current plan and total license count for the team, view and set monitoring blocks, see upcoming invoices, which is only available for business and enterprise plans, view account history, set payment methods, view past invoices, manage overages, add users, and change the team plan. A billing user can add licenses by clicking the Add User Slots button. Enter the number of licenses by clicking, or by, just enter the number of licenses and then click Proceed. Then you'll want to review your changes, and then you'd click Pay to make those changes. Now let's go back and take a look at plan changes. Plan changes can be made by clicking the ellipsis next to the Add User Slots. Select Change Plan for an immediate change, or set instructions for next billing cycle to schedule changes at the end of the current term. For our example, let's take a look at making an immediate change by selecting Change Plan. Here, the plan, billing cycle, team size can all be adjusted. Make any changes and then click Proceed. And then finally, review and confirm your purchase. So here's what we've covered so far. Team roles and how to assign them, developer roles and how to assign those. Roles can be assigned for teams, workspaces, collections, APIs, and environments. Account info can be found on the billing dashboard, and how to change team plans and add licenses. And only users with the billing role can assign the billing role to other users. Last but not least, our Postman resources. I won't go into a whole lot of detail, but I do want you to know what is available to your team. First is the in-app bootcamp, which is a training tool built into Postman app itself. It's designed to onboard new developers to Postman quickly. Next is the Postman API network, where you can find a directory of public APIs curated by Postman. The purpose of the API network is to set up developer onboarding for those APIs. You can literally get started with just one click. Finally, there's the Postman Support Center, where you can find the Postman Learning Center, Postman Community, Postman Roadmap, and Postman Issue Tracker on GitHub. You can also open a support ticket directly from that page. After this webinar, head over to learning.postman.com. We've created an onboarding checklist to help you set up your team. Just search for onboarding checklist and check it out. We've also created a survey to gather your feedback. If you go to this URL, you can complete a quick 15-minute survey and enter a chance, let's see. You can complete a quick 15-minute survey And we really, really value your feedback. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this webinar, and any information you can give us to improve future webinars. Now we're going to open it up for Q&A. So here's a question. Do you have to be a member of a workspace to invite users and set workspace roles? So yes, you would need to be a member of that workspace with the admin role to do that.
We have another one, Josh. You want to take that about
Sure.
versioning?
All right, let's see. Can you please explain how to manage versioning? Do you integrate with GitHub, and what's your recommended versioning strategy? So yes, we do have a GitHub integration, and a really good way to go about it if you're using API schemas is you can set up that integration with GitHub, and it's bi-directional. So if you make changes outside of Postman, they can get brought into Postman. If you make changes in Postman, it gets updated in GitHub. So that's a really good way to go about it. You can do something similar for collections. GitHub integration is originally designed for creating backups, right? It's for kind of creating a copy in GitHub of your current state. And you can actually version inside Postman itself. So the way that we recommend if you're working with collections is to fork and merge directly inside the Postman application. And it works very much like any Git platform, like GitHub, Bitbucket. You fork your collection, you make your changes, you create a pull request, then someone merges those changes.
Thanks, Josh. One other question. Could you talk more about the support user role, please? Yes, sure. So while I do that, yeah. So like I mentioned, support user roles are user roles available in Postman, which do not consume a license but are still available in your Postman team. In fact, we have 2 support roles available for every Postman team, and these are specifically meant for adding people from your IT team or your procurement or software management team who are meant to be a part of the Postman team to manage licenses and or our billing tasks. So these 2 user slots do not actually consume a license which you're paying for. So I hope that answers your question.
All right, here's one about SSO. Does SSO integrate with Azure AD? Yes, it does. You need to have a business or enterprise plan to set that up. And you'll also have to set up an AD application for that. We have step-by-step instructions on exactly how to go about doing that in our Learning Center. You can just search for Azure or Azure SSO, and you'll find the page right away.
Is there a way to restrict which workspace a team member can access? So like I mentioned before, Postman allows us to have private workspaces in the business and enterprise tiers of Postman, where you can restrict the visibility of a workspace to make it private and basically have it with only invite-only access. So that's one way to restrict access to team members of a workspace. Otherwise, it's pretty much by default, anyone can join a workspace in the Postman platform. And there's another one. Do we have integration with Bitbucket? Yes. Postman collections can be integrated with Bitbucket, can be backed up and synced in real time. So you can explore that by heading over to the Postman integrations page from your Postman web dashboard. And you'll find all the integrations there alongside the Bitbucket one.
Is there a way to restrict which workspace a team member has access to? So that's a good one, and that's kind of a strategy that you have to come up with. One one way that you can do that is by, removing the visibility setting on that workspace. So essentially, then that workspace kind of becomes invite only. So the only people that are going to know about it or be able to find it are going to be people who have been invited to it. And that's probably the best way to do it. You can also, you can set default permissions. So I saw another question about being able to change the permissions on workspaces across the team. When a workspace is created, you set the default access level for that workspace for other team members, and you set its visibility. So it's at that time when you're creating that workspace that you would enact whatever policy or standard that you've come up with for creating those.
There's another one for workspaces, which says we want to share a workspace with a customer/third party without them being able to see or have access to the workspaces. Is this possible? I think the question here is if someone could be added as a guest or just share the content within a workspace to a third party or a customer for them to have access to their collections or APIs. If that's what you're looking for, we don't have a readily available place for that in the current structure of workspaces, but this is actively being looked upon and discussing within our product and engineering teams. We also have a GitHub issue where we are tracking a couple of similar feature requests, which are guest accounts for user and so on. So that would be something to look out for.
A note on that too, when you share a collection out of a workspace that the user, with a user that's not part of that workspace, it is read-only. So they'll get a referenced copy, so they'll basically see a copy or a link of to that collection, but it'll be a read-only.
Yes. And then, okay, we have another one. Sorry, you was going ahead, Josh? Go ahead.
We're probably looking at the same one. If you have a team license, can you still collaborate with free Postman users outside of your company? Can they fork and do pull requests on your collections? So right now, it's not possible to share or collaborate on those resources across teams. So what that means is the user would have to be a member of your team. There are some tools that you can use to share across teams. You have to be really careful about how you go and do it. Like if you export that data and then import it somewhere else, you run the risk of having version problems. Somebody may have something that's out of date, and then they do work on it, and now you got an issue, or you could have conflicts. You have multiple people changing the same stuff. So there's a CLI tool that you can use for import export on collections that's kind of popular for unconventional methods of collaborating. But the best way to do it, the safest way to do it, is just to have them as members of the team.
And there's another one I see. It says if you have a team license, okay, I think okay. If you upgrade from team to business, will the cost for the year be prorated for the remainder of the year? I think the way in terms of how upgrades would work is if you switch over from a team to a higher tier business plan in the middle of your billing cycle and go from an annual team plan to an annual business plan, there is an option to upgrade to a higher tier plan at any point in time that you'd like. But if I'm not wrong, I think that would be calculated from the date of upgradation from that specific date and will be prorated. And also another thing to note is there is an option to set your billing instruction cycle. So the next time you have your renewal cycle is coming up, you have an option to choose the plan that you want to get renewed on. So that's an option as well.
All right, I see a question. Can or how do you maintain a local collection when you're logged in? When I tried it, Postman removed the local versions. So this is something that can happen if, for instance, let's say your team just upgraded and they just integrated SSO, and you're using the same email account, but you're logging in with a username and password, and you're not logging in through SSO. Another thing that can happen is if you're just using a different email address, right? So if your email address is different, you may actually have another account. And so what happens is when you log in with the app, it's going to sync, right? And it's going to say, oh, well, this user has this set of collections, and it's going to load those collections. Now, if your team just moved to SSO, your data should migrate over to your SSO account. Everything should move over so long as the email address is the same. So if you log in with the same email address through the SSO option, your account will be converted to SSO and everything should move over with it. You just need to make sure that you're actually using the SSO option and you're not logging in with your email and password on the Postman login page.
There's one other thing which talks about, can you show or talk more about versioning of collections or requests? Yes, so Postman does provide an option to version out your Postman collections, and it pretty much covers the whole workflow. Like Josh is showing on his screen right now,
Sorry about that.
You can actually version out a collection, fork a collection. No problem. You can fork a collection using the fork option on a collection, and then either move the fork to your private workspace to work on it separately, or still have it in your team workspace from where you're forking the collection. And after making changes or updates to your collection, Postman provides an option to submit a pull request. So you'll now have an option to submit a pull request and go through the whole PR flow, choose reviewers, and once reviewers look at the changes that you've made and approve them, and they'll now have an option to merge the fork back into the main collection, and so on. As you can see on Josh's screen right now, you're looking at a fork collection from an origin collection.
Yeah, and the questions come up before too. How do you make sure that your fork is up to date? So let's say that you do fork a collection, you're working on it, but you don't finish it up right away, and then you come back the next day and you want to do some more work on it, but you want to make sure there weren't any changes in the meantime. What you do is you come over here, you click on the ellipsis on the right here, and then you're going to go to merge changes. And Postman's going to know that this is a fork and it needs to merge changes from the source, and it'll update that fork for you.
We have another one that says, when I choose to switch team discovery feature on, the domain listed is incorrect. Is it possible to change this? The domain that you see there is probably picked up from your team email address and so on, but I think we need to dig a bit deeper into see why that's not showing up, or if there's any specific problem. We haven't come across this. So I recommend you to reach out to us by raising a support ticket from our support center, and we'll be happy to help you out there. I think we've covered most of the questions, Josh.
I see one. There's what's the best way to securely share API documentation with third parties? Is making it public but not searchable enough? Or would you recommend adding external users to the team? Do you support guest type accounts? So again, you could add someone to the team, but just not make them a member of any of the workspaces, and then you could share collections with them and they'd be read-only. So that's one strategy you could use. Another way you could do it is you could export and send them the collection, because all your documentation is included in the collection itself. So there's more than one way to go about doing that. Kind of depends on how secure you need it to be. whether you're worried about version control and you know, copies that are distributed falling out of date and stuff like that.
Okay, I see one which says, is there a way to prevent sensitive data being used in collection endpoints or in environments? Yes, there definitely is. So Postman environments provide an option of having sessions, which essentially means you have an option to choose between what values you enter as variables in your environments. So you'll probably be noticing an initial value and a current value uh, in your Postman environment section. Anything that you put up in your initial value is meant for sharing, is synced with Postman cloud servers. But however, if you enter any value that is present under current value, that is only limited to your profile, your user. It will always remain local in your Postman instance. So I hope that answers your question.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for attending today, our webinar. We hope you enjoyed it, and we hope you got some information that you needed. Again, Postman will be sending this out, the recording, to folks. You just need some time to process it and get it ready to send out. And we hope to see you again soon.